Termincentum en las piernas de mi hijastro durante un viaje por un camino lleno de baches. Saturday held the promise of something extraordinary following a week filled with relentless effort. We chose to seize the late afternoon to embark on an escape to the mountains of Asturias. The weather was ideal, the sky pristine, a refreshing breeze, and the road beckoning us toward the journey ahead. In the car, we were traveling with my husband, my son from my first marriage, my stepson, and my lifelong best friend. After lunch, we set out with the goal of witnessing the sunset from one of the most breathtaking viewpoints in the area. The journey was vibrant, brimming with joy, stories, and melodies drifting from the radio. The lush, towering mountains surrounded us, creating an ambience of pure serenity. Upon our arrival, the breathtaking display of the sun painting the horizon in shades of orange and purple rendered us utterly speechless. We captured images, shared the delicious food we had brought, and allowed ourselves to be swept away by the beauty of the moment. It was one of those flawless instances that felt as if it had been lifted straight from a postcard, yet, as with all delightful moments, time slipped away swiftly, and when the shadows started to cloak the surroundings, we understood it was time to return home. The vehicle was packed with backpacks and picnic utensils, making the space feel a bit more cramped. My eldest son wanted to take the front seat this time, so my friend sat beside him. I found myself with limited choices, perched on my stepson's lap in the back seat. It was not the first time that something like this had occurred, and it had never felt uncomfortable before. The car's movements, the gentle curves, and the minor bumps on the road compelled us to continually readjust our positions. I attempted to brush it aside, concentrating on the chatter around me or gazing out the window, yet the sensation grew more pronounced. I stood still, silent, attempting to appear as casual as I could. I wished to keep my discomfort hidden, avoiding any unusual situations that might arise. I made a subtle shift in my posture, feigning an effort to settle in more comfortably, as though that slight contact had triggered an instinctive response. My heart raced quicker than usual, even as I attempted to assure myself that there was no cause for it. He stayed utterly still. He appeared to wrestle internally, striving to refrain from any response that might further highlight the situation. The road sloped downward, the headlights illuminating the interior with shifting shadows, and with each passing minute, the sensation grew that time was flowing in an unusual manner. I grabbed my cell phone and feigned checking a message, grateful for the distraction it provided. Yet my thoughts remained ensnared in the unfolding events. My breathing was deeper than usual, and despite my efforts to dismiss every odd sensation, the heaviness of that night had already etched itself into my memory. The vehicle veered off course, and I sensed we were nearing home. A peculiar blend of relief and confusion washed over me. On one hand, I felt an urgent need to escape that space, yet on the other, I couldn't shake the curiosity about why that seemingly harmless situation had stirred something so peculiar within me. My husband gazed into the mirror and smiled. "What's happening back there?" They remain remarkably silent. "We are simply exhausted," I responded swiftly, managing a smile. My companion chuckled, extending in a relaxed manner. The air of the mountain rendered us utterly speechless. The vehicle came to a halt before the residence. Once the doors swung open, I hurried out, the refreshing night air brushing against my face. For the first time since we departed, I found myself able to breathe with a sense of calm. My stepson departed with a sense of calm, steering clear of direct eye contact with me. As my husband swung open the door to our home, and my friend playfully suggested a hot shower, I made my way into the kitchen and poured myself a refreshing glass of water. My friend intended to head back to her apartment, and my children were engaged in their own pursuits. Everything appeared to be in place, except for my thoughts, which remained haunted by the events of the previous night. I wore a fitted skirt paired with a white silk blouse that featured a delicate neckline, striking a balance between elegance and modesty. I selected comfortable heels and long heels that reached my collarbones. I have always enjoyed dressing elegantly and feeling secure in my style. As I entered the room, I found him seated on the sofa, cinched at my waist with a casual bow. However, I was not by myself. As I pivoted, I found him standing at the threshold of the kitchen. My stepson donned sports pants and a shirt that hung loosely on him, yet his eyes reflected the same expression as they had the night before. "Good morning," I said with a steady voice. It was neither an innocent gaze nor completely deliberate, but rather something in between, as if he were unsure of his own actions. "I'm okay," I replied with a faint smile, yet my hand, placed on the table, betrayed a sense of tension. He set down his cup, and walked past me to open the fridge. As he moved, his arm brushed against my back. Subtly, yet I sensed it. There was an overwhelming sense of intimacy, excessive details that were previously absent, and the most frustrating part was that I just couldn't help but notice them. After breakfast, I attempted to handle the cleaning, yet my thoughts remained ensnared in those fleeting moments. I slipped into some snug leggings and a lightweight wool sweater, aiming to embrace comfort and the rhythm of my daily routine. Upon my return to the room, he was present, seated on the sofa, his cell phone in hand. Upon sensing my presence, he raised his gaze. "Would you like to catch a film?" he inquired. His tone was relaxed, as if everything were just fine. "Certainly," I replied, engaging in light conversation and feigning ignorance of the deeper issues lurking beneath. Yet, I sensed it. He as well. A quiet secret lingered in the air between us. An unspoken tension that eluded definition yet was undeniable in its presence. That night, as I ascended to my room, and shut the door behind me, I leaned against it, letting out a slow breath. Something had shifted. And I couldn't feign ignorance to it. The burden of the secret lingered in the air between us. We hadn't spoken of it, yet I sensed it in every meeting, in every exchanged glance, in every unintentional touch that lingered just a moment longer than needed. The issue extended beyond mere physical proximity. It was how my thoughts started to dance within me. In the morning, I attempted to overlook it. I adorned myself in a flowing white linen dress and easygoing sandals. I gathered my hair into a low bun, and applied just a hint of makeup to add some color to my complexion. As I descended the stairs, I caught sight of him in the room. My stepson sat on the sofa, a book in his hands. When he sensed my presence, his eyes lifted slowly, following me with a motion that felt almost instinctive. It was merely a moment, however, I witnessed it. And I sensed it. "I'm heading out to pick up a few things," I mentioned, attempting to keep my tone relaxed. "Are you seeking assistance?" he inquired, shutting the book with a deliberate motion. I declined too hastily with a shake of my head. "No. I appreciate it. It's merely a small request." He agreed, yet in his expression, there lingered an indefinable quality. I exited the house and strolled to the quaint shop in the neighborhood. The crisp air invigorated my senses, yet deep down, I couldn't shake the unsettling notion that chaos lingered just beneath the surface. Upon my return, the house lay in stillness. I placed the bags in the kitchen, and then made my way to the living room. He remained present. However, this time, his posture had changed. He lay on the sofa. For a brief instant, no one stirred. The silence deepened. A gentle sensation brushed against my skin. It was a look unlike any other. It was truly extraordinary. Something that ought to be absent. Something I couldn't quite articulate, yet undeniably was present. I cleared my throat and averted my gaze. "I'm going to whip up something for dinner." "All right," he responded. Yet there was an unusual tone in his voice. I turned and made my way to the kitchen, sensing his gaze lingering on my back until I was out of view. As dinner unfolded, a sense of normalcy washed over the atmosphere. My husband shared his thoughts on work, my daughter animatedly recounted her day, while my stepson sat quietly, as he often does, absorbed in his meal. Yet, beneath the table, I sensed something. A minimal amount of resistance. A gentle pressure against my leg. It was merely a fleeting instant, so delicate that it might have been a mere coincidence. A couple of days later, my husband requested that I run an errand. I ventured out in the afternoon, adorned in a fitted black skirt, and a beige silk blouse featuring a subtle neckline. I slipped into some low heels and gathered my hair into a high ponytail. Upon my return, he stood at the entrance of the building. "Will you be returning home?" he inquired. "Indeed." We ascended together. We stepped into the elevator, the space felt cramped, almost suffocating. I pressed the floor button, sensing his gaze lingering on my profile. The elevator started its ascent, but on the third floor. He gazed at the control panel. Absolutely. He pressed the emergency button, yet no one responded right away. The elevator stood in utter stillness, save for the rhythm of our breathing. The area felt cramped, the atmosphere excessively dense. Escape was impossible. For a brief instant, neither of them stirred. My heartbeat throbbed in my ears. He was uncomfortably near. I sensed the warmth of his body just inches away from my own. I ought to stay put. I ought not to gaze upon him, however, I did, and there he was once more. That expression, gloomy, powerful. Bridging the gap that separates us, the elevator remained halted, silence enveloped the surroundings. Just the tension, that heavy weight lingering in the atmosphere. My hand was resting on the wall. And by chance, his brushed against mine. My skin trembled. I sensed his breathing, the subtle quiver in his chest as he let out a breath. I must keep moving. I must not permit it. However, I remained still, nor did he. Time appeared to freeze. In that fleeting moment, a mere microsecond, reality appeared to waver and blend into something indistinct. I'm uncertain about the duration of our current state. Then, all at once, the elevator sprang back to life. The lights flickered, and in an instant, the cabin ascended to our floor. The door creaked open. I stepped out, determined, without a glance behind me. He emerged from behind me. We remained silent, yet, we understood that we had merely crossed an unseen boundary. I understood that this was far from over. This cannot be the conclusion.